Hello, welcome back, Recaps Mystery here. Today, I'm going to explain an American drama thriller film called Hide and Seek. Watch out and take care. Allison Calloway and Emily Calloway, her 9-year-old daughter, are playing at a park together. Dr. David Calloway, Allison's husband and a psychologist, is also present and watching them play. Allison and Emily play hide and seek at night, following which Allison tucks Emily into bed. Allison appears to be concerned about something. David inquires, but she dismisses it. Allison then goes to the bathroom to take a bath. However, around 2 a.m., David awakens to find Allison still not in bed. He checks the bathroom and is scared to see Allison seated on a bleeding tub. She had killed herself by cutting her wrist. Emily waits in the doorway, watching David sob over Allison's body. Emily is at a children's hospital a few days later and appears depressed. David consults with his colleague and dear friend, Dr. Catherine Carson, and agrees that he and Emily should go to the countryside for a while. Catherine is also close to Emily. She hugs Emily and bids her bye before they depart. Emily transports her cat to the new location. David and Emily have arrived at their new residence. It is located in a wooded region and is quite quiet. A sheriff and the owner of the house greet them. Emily vanishes while they are gazing about. They come across her near the woods, staring at something. Emily doesn't eat anything that night and goes to bed early. David tries to cheer her up. He then offers her a diary in which she can write down her feelings. And Emily kisses her favorite doll, Alex, goodnight before retiring to bed. The next day, David is unpacking his possessions in his study room when Emily disappears into the woods in pursuit of a butterfly. Finally, she comes across a cave. She has returned by the time David begins seeking for her. Alex, her favorite toy doll, is not. He and Emily soon go to perform some errands. As David is filling up his petrol tank, he notices a woman playing with a young girl. He presents himself to them, thinking that the small girl and Emily would become friends. Elizabeth Young is the woman's name. She appears to have enchanted David. He asks them to see him someday. That night, when tucking Emily into bed, David inquires about her doll, Alex, to which she responds that she no longer likes her. She informs him that Alex has been replaced with a new pal named Charlie. When David presses her on Charlie, she claims he doesn't enjoy being talked about. David phones Catherine to inform her of the event. They both believe that Charlie is an imaginary buddy Emily made up to help her deal with her ordeal. The next day, David discovers Alex in the dumpster, her face deformed. David tries to talk to her about Charlie later during supper. At the time, she informs him that Charlie is a lot of fun, much like her mother was. He has another nightmare that night. He's been having nightmares about the New Year's Eve party that happened the night before Allison died. The nightmare wakes him up at the exact time Allison died. He hears a disturbance and goes to the toilet to see the words "You let her die" written on the wall. Emily's crayon is scattered about the bathtub. When he turns around, he sees Emily behind him. Yet when questioned, Emily swears it was Charlie who did it. Elizabeth and her niece, Amy, arrive the next day. David introduces Amy to Emily, but she appears uninterested. Amy is eager to become friends with Emily as they play, so she passes her doll to her. When Emily returns it, its face is distorted, just like Alex's. Emily informs Amy that she should not be present. They flee soon after, terrified. When David inquires about Amy, Emily responds that she doesn't need any new pals and that Charlie is sufficient. Emily afterwards plays outside as David handles the dishes. He notices a stranger seated near her and walks out to investigate, only to discover that the man is their neighbor, Stephen. After an unsettling conversation, David tells Emily not to talk to strangers. David hears Emily laugh that night, but when he goes to check on her, she is alone. He inquires as to whether Charlie is present, but Emily responds that he just left through the window. David approaches Emily about Charlie, but Emily admits that Charlie dislikes David. After putting her to bed, David records everything in his journal. Later, we see Emily and Charlie playing hide and seek. She steps out of her room and searches the house for him. She discovers a door hidden behind a wardrobe. It leads to a basement on the ground floor. She walks there, still looking for him, when the lights go out and she yells in terror. David arrives immediately to pick her up. She informs him that Charlie had been hidden in the dark. Elizabeth comes over for dinner the next day. Emily does not appear to like her. Elizabeth attempts to converse with Emily and gives her some books to read. Emily, on the other hand, is antagonistic to her and throws all of the books to the floor. When David notices this, he orders her to go to her room. Elizabeth is about to go. David wakes up again at 2:06 that night. The bathroom is making a strange noise. When he walks in to check, he notices the words "Now look what you've done." The bathtub is filled with filthy water. David senses something inside as he moves in to drain it. It's the body of the cat who lived with them. David storms into Emily's room. Enraged, Emily, on the other hand, is adamant that it was Charlie. He then cleans up the bathroom mess. Emily shows David photos she's drawn of Charlie and her mother the next day. David tries to convince Emily that Charlie is not real, but she continues to cry his name. Catherine pays them a visit that day. Catherine is a close friend of David's who is also close to Emily. Emily is ecstatic to meet her. She advises that David transport Emily back to New York. He tells her that he will think about it. After she leaves, David enters Emily's room and discovers that she has drawn pictures of her mother killing herself in the diary he gave her. Elizabeth returns the next day, but David doesn't hear her knocking, so she enters and walks into Emily's room. She has come to make amends with Emily, but Emily informs her that she is hiding from Charlie and points to the closet. As Elizabeth opens the wardrobe door, she is attacked and falls through the windows. After a few hours, a sheriff arrives to inquire about Elizabeth. The sheriff informs David that he discovered Elizabeth's car wrecked down the road and that her niece told him she had come here, but David is unaware of the incident. The sheriff then inquires about Emily, but she lies and claims that she hasn't seen her. David notices something is awry after he has left. He notices the smashed window. Emily is sobbing uncontrollably. She displays the time to him. It is 2:06 once more. David goes to the bathroom, where he notices some phrases scrawled on the shower curtain. "Can you see anything now?" When he unlocks it, he is horrified to find a dead Elizabeth lying in the tub. He hurries back to a distraught Emily, but she insists it was Charlie. She claims she is unable to tell David anything about him. David then locks her in the room and hurries away. We then see someone open the door for her. Emily then phones Catherine to inform her that she no longer wishes to play with Charlie. David, on the other hand, makes the decision to dispose of Elizabeth's body. But when he enters the restroom, the body has already vanished. Emily claims Charlie simply departed with it. This has gotten out of hand. David is now enraged and determined to discover who Charlie truly is. He rushes outdoors to look for him. His neighbor Stephen emerges behind him and asks to see Emily because he has heard noises coming from their house. David tackles him, presuming that he has been Charlie the entire time. He rushes back to his house and closes the doors behind him. He advises him to keep his distance from his daughter. Emily clings to him in terror and begs him not to let her see Charlie again. David then enters his study area, where he notices that none of the boxes have been opened since they moved in. The journals are also empty. He is stunned because he has been in the study several times since the relocation. Writing in his journal, suddenly, everything returns to him. We can tell that Emily met David that day at the cave. He realizes he has dissociative identity disorder, and Charlie is not a figment of his imagination. Charlie is David himself. David was in his study whenever Charlie appeared. He also remembers the New Year's Eve celebration the night before his wife died. He had found Allison kissing another visitor. Charlie was constructed to express David's wrath in order for him to murder his wife, something the placid David was too decent to do. Emily was aware of her father's split personality the entire time but did not inform him since she was unsure which side murdered her mother until Charlie killed Elizabeth. David forgets everything every time Charlie appears. When David realizes this, Charlie's personality completely dominates him. He informs Emily that Daddy has left. Fortunately, a neighbor has contacted the sheriff, who arrives to check on David. When the lights go out, he finds Emily in her room. The sheriff walks downstairs to investigate. Charlie, on the other hand, kills him. Charlie has a feeling Emily no longer likes him. He begins a game of hide-and-seek and begins to count. Emily sprints to her room. Catherine appears just then. Charlie arrives behind her and pushes her down as she proceeds down the basement. He confines her there, where she discovers the sheriff's body. Emily, on the other hand, shuts herself up in her room. Charlie slams the door open, but Emily has already slipped out the window and is fleeing to the woods. She takes refuge in the cave. Catherine grabs the sheriff's revolver and flees to save Emily. Catherine arrives in the cave before Charlie can reach Emily, but Charlie poses as David, and when she lets down her guard, he strikes her again. Emily diverts Charlie's focus away from Catherine, preventing him from killing her. As Charlie gets closer to killing Emily, Catherine steps in and shoots him to death. Emily and Catherine had returned to New York a few months later. They are currently living happily ever after. The film concludes with a zoom onto Emily's drawing of herself and Catherine, in which she has two faces, implying that she, like her father, may have two identities. Please subscribe to assist the channel, turn on notification and leave a like. Thank you for taking the time to watch. See you again soon.